Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Little Horn series. It is worth saying that there are so many YouTube videos out there on the Little Horn. My video is not going to top theirs, and that's not my intention by any means. But I do want to just bring it all together and hopefully present it in a concise way that will help us. Now, I'm going to take this series quite slow because I really want us to take it slow and to see what it is actually saying. Okay, right. We in order to find out what the little horn is, we have to trace back to the rest of the vision. There is a connection with the dreams in Daniel 2 and Daniel chapter 7. Now, in Daniel 2, it is Nebuchadnezzar that has a dream, and in chapter 7, it is Daniel who has a dream. And in fact, there's one commentator says that unlike Nebuchadnezzar's dream and Daniel's visions, Daniel's apocalyptic revelations focus less on the dreamer's fate and more on the international events. Also, in contrast to the earlier scenes, Daniel is now himself in need of an interpreter. So it is very interesting to see that in chapter 2, Daniel gave Nebuchadnezzar the meaning of this dream, and yet in chapter 7, Daniel has the same dream but given in different physical descriptions, and he was also in need of an interpreter. So I think it just goes to show that God revealed one part of the revelation, and then in chapter 7, it's almost like he's not abandoning chapter 2. He's just building on it. You know, he starts somewhere as a foundation, and then he builds upon it. All right, in chapter 2, the sequence goes as follows. Nebuchadnezzar has a dream, and he sees a statue of a big metal man, and each part of the body was made out of different parts of metal. The head was made of gold, the chest made of silver, the middle and thigh area was made of bronze, it had legs of iron, and then its feet was sort of a mixture of clay and iron. And then we're told in chapter 2, a rock comes down, crushes the image of the metal man, the feet, and it breaks, and the other images above it also shatter, and the wind blew it away. And then that rock grew into an entire mountain. All right, in chapter 7, then Daniel has the dream, and the sequence is very similar. And he sees, first of all, a lion with wings like an eagle, and it stood like a man, and it had a human mind. And then he sees a beast resembling a bear, raised on one side. It had 3 ribs in its mouth. The third beast was then a leopard. It had 4 wings and 4 heads. And then the fourth beast is not given a name. It's just called a terrifying beast or a dreadful beast. It was extremely strong, had large iron teeth, and it was different from all the other beasts. All right, one thing to understand, as I've already said, that these two visions are correlated. They correspond exactly within the same sequence. And the one of the answers, or the meaning rather, that is very important is in Daniel chapter 7, first of all, verse 16, which says, "So he told me and gave me the interpretation of these things. The 4 great beasts are 4 kings that will arise from the earth." So right there, we're told exactly 4 beasts represent 4 kingdoms or 4 kings that will arise on the earth. That means the 4 parts of the statue are also 4 kingdoms. Then it's also believed that the water in Daniel 7 represents the sea and the nations of every tribe. In fact, if you read Revelation 17, you'll see that the sea there represents the multitude of people, every tribe, nation, etc. And then the wind usually refers to some calamity, whether that be political turmoil or oppression, persecution, some sort of oppression on the people of all nations. Well then, we then go to Daniel chapter 2, and then if we go to verse 38, Daniel says directly to Nebuchadnezzar, "You are the head of gold." So right there we know that the head of gold is the kingdom of Babylon. The first beast, like a lion, is the kingdom of Babylon. In fact, that description in chapter 7 of the first beast like a lion is interesting because it talks about that he would fall down onto the ground and then he would stand up like a human, and then a mind was given to him, and that corresponds with Nebuchadnezzar in chapter 4, where it says, "You shall be driven away from human society, and your dwelling shall be with the animals of the field. You shall be made to eat grass like oxen, and 7 times shall pass over you until you have learned that the Most High has sovereignty over the kingdom of mortals and gives it to all to whom he will." And then it talks about later that his hair grew as long as eagles' feathers, and his nails became like birds' claws. And then he stands up and comes back to his senses and praises the Most High, which is a reference, I think, to the standing up and the mind given to him. So without a doubt, our starting point for the first beast is Babylon, and that dates us to 605 to 539 BC. Also on the Babylonian gate, there is an artwork of a lion with eagle's wings, so it just corresponds exactly that the kingdom of Babylon was portrayed with this beast. Okay, from there on, we're told in chapter 2, these are the kingdoms that will come after you, O great Babylon. So we know that Medo-Persia came next in 539 to 331 BC. And it's interesting, it's described as a bear in chapter 7, raised on one side, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth. And interestingly, Medo-Persia and Persia became the stronger empire. They did conquer Babylon, Egypt, and Lydia. So that could be what those 3 ribs are referring to there. Okay, the next piece of metal is the bronze, which is the middle and the thighs, and then the beast corresponding to that is the leopard, which we're told has 4 wings and 4 heads. Now, what's interesting about that is this would come under the rule of Alexander the Great, and the Greek Empire ruled from 331 to 168 BC. However, even though Alexander the Great conquered all these kingdoms in his early 20s, 10 years later he's killed, and actually his generals actually split the kingdom into 4 pieces in 300 BC. And those 4 generals were as follows: Cassander, Licinius, Ptolemy, and Lucius. So that could be what the 4 heads and 4 wings would be referring to there, when even the Greek Empire was split into 4 sections. Okay, I actually want to just leave it there for today because, as I said, I want to take this really slowly. So stay tuned for the next episode, and then we'll move on to the legs of iron and the 4th beast.